The Acolyte, the final episode, the conclusion to the series, the conclusion to the show. Hits and misses. It shows. It's interesting to start off with. If you tell me you have a Jedi, a Star Wars Jedi murder mystery, and there's going to be a Wookiee with a lightsaber, I'm in. That's it. You know, I want to check it out. It could be fan made. I got a buddy that lives down the street. He could have made it. I'm going to check that out. That sounds appealing to the nerd in me. You know, I blew a flux capacitor when I heard that, man. But then they said all of these great actors and actresses would be in it. And Lee Jong-jae did a great job in this. And I, from what I understand, he learned English for the show. Man, that dude's Korean. And he learned English for this movie. That deserves views right there just for that, just because he did that. I mean, it's an entire show. And he learned all of the language. He learned how to put emphasis on certain words because, you know, it's just sounds when you learn another language. You know, if someone teaches you another language, at first it's just noises, it's just sounds. You don't recognize it as whatever, you know. If someone walks up to you and goes, "C'est va," it's just words, it's just sound rather. You know, later you realize what they're saying. "C'est va bien, "c'est va mal, très mal." You learn, but at first it's just noises, and he learned that in short notice for the entirety of the show and could put emphasis on certain things. And I thought that was incredible. I thought that was amazing. That is pure skill. And he did it in short notice, man. So it's the conclusion of the show. And I didn't get all of the answers that I was looking for. Who is the stranger? I don't know. How did they create Osha and May? I don't know. I mean, they used a word, but they didn't actually show it. Now here's the thing that's important. It's called divergence. The divergence is a part of the Force that can be used for several things, but predominantly, the main reason you look for divergence is it can create life. That's a big thing. So the Force can create life. So the witches of Brendok learn to create life. Did they just make it up? Did they just figure it out? Was there secret text? Did someone show them? We never know, but they know now. So they have essentially a nuclear weapon in the Star Wars canon. They can go into the Force and they can reach into the Force and pull out a perfect Force user. They did that. And for reasons that they didn't say, I think I know, but for reasons they don't say, they created May and Osha, but they, as one person, but they had to divide it into two people. So that, you had two people. I think that they did that because there was so much energy that they had to make two completely separate entities and not one. They probably tried it before and that one probably just blew up or, went nuts or whatever. But they made two different people. One was leaning more heavily towards the dark side and one was leaning more heavily towards the light. But if you watch the entire series, you see that they kind of were interwoven with both sides of the Force. An interesting plot. They really should have stuck the landing with that because that that's interesting. That was the draw right there. But they create May and Osha using divergence from the Force. So they learn this technique. And then someone else realizes that they know this technique to bring life from the Force. So the story is really not about what it seems to be about. It's really about the witches. They created this technique to pull life from the Force. Who were the fathers? Who was the father of the girls? There was none. That's what they say. There was no father. It's the Force, man. Which goes back to Star Wars having a lot of Christian influence. You know, Mary gave birth to Christ without the use of a man. And Christ was perfect. You know, he's Nephilim. He's perfect. Son of God. The girls were birthed without the use of a man, which, you know, now that I say that out loud, sounds kind of bad, but because I'm a guy, they created them. The Force basically just went poof and spit them out. And the witches divided them into two different people. I think it's because of so much power, they didn't know how to create an entity that would be able to contain it. But later, there's another person that is created in a very similar way. At the end, the Force just kind of spit them out. This person didn't have a father, just came out of nowhere, and that was Anakin Skywalker. You would expect the Force to create May and Osha, and they'd be perfect, but they're not. You would expect, since it made Anakin, who becomes Darth Vader, that he will be perfect, but he's not. From the twins to Anakin to his kids, they're moving towards a more perfect entity. So it reminds me of Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme, when the computer was creating perfect soldiers. You know, it put the chip in them and everything, and it brought the dead soldiers back to life. Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, they were supposed to be perfect. But the computer was like, nah, not really perfect yet. And it looked further, and it looked further, and it looked further, and it eventually created its own perfect body, gave it more strength and speed and determination, all that kind of stuff, you know. And then it made the Michael J. White version, and then Seth put itself inside of that body to make it perfect. I think that's kind of what the Force was doing. It made something that was like, nah, that's not it. And then it made something else that was like, Anakin, nah, that's not it. And it made the other twins, Leia and Luke, and I was like, that's kind of close. That's kind of close. And it will eventually create a completely perfect entity. Now I wonder, are people using the Force to create these nearly perfect entities, or is the Force using people to create these entities? Because the Force is kind of alive. You know, you get that crystal, you put it in the lightsaber, depending on you, it feels you and your presence, and it creates a certain color for that lightsaber that indicates you. If you're filled with anger and rage and hate and loathing and other emotions like that, it will force that crystal to turn red. So like Green Lantern rings. Red Green Lantern rings filled with rage and hate. So are these crystals. You fill it with rage and hate, it turns red, and now, you know, you're on the dark side. You're on the dark side, baby. So it feels stuff. So if it feels stuff, it's got to think. And if it thinks, you know, this could be an entire entity on the other side of the veil, pushing its influence into the Star Wars universe. And people are thinking, oh man, I feel that. Do you feel that? Well, I'm in tune with it. I can lift rocks now because I'm in tune with it. And it could be an entity on another side influencing people. It's creating life. Why? That's what I was wondering. Through this entire series, when I got to the last show, I was saying to myself, why is it doing that? Because it seems to be doing it more than people are doing it. People are thinking they're doing it, but it is doing it. When people get wild animals and they train them and they think that they're okay and they bring them into their home and they think that they have mastered that wild animal, and then one day that wild animal eats them, it was never not wild. It just didn't eat you yet. You were feeding it. You were taking care of it. And it allowed you didn't allow it to live in your home. It allowed you to live. And then one day that alligator, that tiger, that gorilla, that wolf, or whatever you brought into your house, that anaconda, what? It ate you. Because it was ultimately in charge of that situation. You didn't understand that situation. That's the same with the Force. Maybe the Force is influencing people as opposed to people being able to use the Force. Makes you wonder, because it is creating life. And once it has its perfect avatar on the Star Wars side of that veil, then what? It's like the senator in here, one of the senators in here, he played a Vulcan in another show. I believe that was him. No, that wasn't him. He played Martian Manhunter in another show, which was really cool. But he's in this show and he tells them what happens when one of you, basically goes nuts. Then what? Anakin. But he wasn't the worst one. He was just one of them. I mean, there's a lot of crazy Sith out there, and maybe the Sith are really the ones that are really in tune with what the Force wants. I mean, it's creating life. AI exists now. What if AI started creating life? We'd be all Matrix, Terminator type worlds. And people would look back and was like, it probably wasn't a good idea to do that. People will probably, in the future, maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years in the future, the Star Wars show starts off by saying, the very first movie, a long time ago, far, far away. All of this happened a long time ago, far, far away. So it wasn't near here, and it was hundreds of thousands and thousands of years ago. This story is ancient, which means a long time ago. This is over. All of the Star Wars stuff, we're looking into the past. Every single show, every single story, every single book, it's over. This is the past. This is the history of a place that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe because the Force actually got loose over there. Man, maybe. I don't know. But they tell you in the beginning, a long time ago, far, far away. People talk to me about Star Wars and they say, well, the humans versus the... And I'm like, there are no humans, man. There are none. That's another universe. You're looking at an actor playing a different alien. All of them are aliens. If you're from Brendok, that ain't Earth. There's no Earthlings there. You got to be from Earth to be an Earthling. Those guys are Brendokians. They might look like a human, but a human can't reach inside your mind, make your eyes go black, and control your dreams. For all Freddy Krueger style. Everybody you see in Star Wars is an alien, no matter what the blonde hair, what the Asian kung fu throwing, what the cowboy, with the guns and the Mandalorian, none of them. They're not one single human. Because they're not from Earth. They're not Earthlings. They might look like humans because they don't want to spend the money to make every single person look like a monster, But, you know, you got to have some people that the audience relates to. You know, we're seeing it through the eyes of humans. So watching it, and we see people pick up these sticks with the lasers on the end that don't just shoot off into space. They're just a laser, like right on the end, and they're fighting each other, stabbing each other. That might be in actuality something completely different than what we're seeing. I read a comic book one time, a long time ago. It was Doctor Strange, and he hands someone a device and tells them, take this, it'll protect you. And the guy said, it's a gun. And Doctor Strange said, it's not a gun. That's just how you perceive it. He handed him something that his mind couldn't wrap around, and his mind just told him it was a gun. Galactus from Marvel comic books shows up at a planet, and he is such an indescribable creature that when people from a certain world see him, they see him as a giant version of themselves, because even other galaxies, other worlds, other creatures can't really wrap their mind around what they're actually seeing. They just perceive him as a giant version of one of their own. On Earth, he looks like a giant human. You know, if he was to go to Brendok, he'd look like a giant Brendokian. You know, that's what's happening in Star Wars, I think. We're perceiving a lightsaber as you know, it's a sword, because that's a basic weapon to us, a sword. It's a sword. But these people, thousands of years ago, on the other side of the galaxy, or maybe the other side of the universe, maybe, who knows where they're at, were using weapons to fight each other, and we just perceive it that way because we don't actually know what happened way over there, way back then, or whatever. Which brings me back to this. These aren't humans. They're all aliens. And they're all alienated up, which is kind of cool, because I really wanted to see an alien Wookiee with a lightsaber. Man, got a little bit of that last episode. I've been on vacation, just got back last night, this morning, I guess would be more accurate. And I missed doing that one, but I did see it on a plane. Alien with a lightsaber, man. That was kind of cool. But in this episode, they don't answer the questions that I wanted answered. I wanted to know who the stranger was. I wanted to know where May, how they created May and Osha. They did a little bit of a twist, which was kind of cool. They did it. It was kind of slick, kind of sly. I mean, you could kind of feel it was happening. But May and Osha flip their dynamics. The one you expected to be bad becomes good. The one you expected to be good becomes bad. And when May and Osha switched places a couple of episodes ago, and they're talking to the stranger, and she says, I had a vision. I saw my sister without a lightsaber kill a Jedi, and he was essentially their most powerful Jedi at that point. And the stranger was like, it's a vision of the future, something that was actually going to happen. I was like, well, they're twins, technically the exact same person. So even if you saw her or yourself, you saw yourself, because you're the exact same person split in two. So yeah, that was you. I was thinking that. Turned out to be her. She did it. She killed, you know, the big homie Saul, you know, with a force choke, which we need that in every episode. Somebody's got to get, you know, they say you're going to get these hands where I come from. And somebody's got to get those hands in Star Wars. They got to, you know, Bela Lugosi reach out to you and choke you to death with the force. Boy, they lucky I can't do that, because there's a lot of people. I'd be like, I'd get arthritis in my hand and carpal tunnel in my arm, because I'd be just having my arm stuck out all day. You know, heading to the bus stop, somebody bump me, make me drop my coffee. I'd be like, no, you did not. I couldn't be able to force choke people. You know, that would turn into a thing. Anyway, So Osha and May decide that there should, you know, just all Highlander style, there should be only one. And they do that. They wipe the memory of one. I'm not going to say, you know, I'm sure you want to see it if you have not seen it. They wipe the memory of one. The other one stays and trains with the stranger. But they are not on that island alone. They leave it really, I mean, it's not even like, you know, Jason pops out of the water at the end of a movie. You're like, oh, he's still alive. They might make another movie. And this one, there were so many open endings, open-ended plots that there's got to be movies or another season or something coming on after this, because they leave a lot of stuff. The little green chick was talking to somebody on the space phone, and they were giving her orders. And I'm like, who's telling her what to do? She's like in charge of this sector or this office at least. You know, what's going on with that? And then the senator is pushing against her. And I figured he was going to die or something was going to happen with him, but that's open-ended. One of the twins, which is the same person, is being taught by the stranger, and they're both holding the lightsaber together, you know, hand over hand. Was that unity or was that love? What was that all about? Then, I mean, there can be love on the dark side, because that's pretty much what turned, you know, Anakin into Darth Vader. So they're going to have it. Is the stranger the master, or is he himself a Padawan or a Sith apprentice, and he's taken on another apprentice, an Acolyte, so that he can destroy his master? I don't know. We see a mysterious figure in there, in one of the caves, and you see these long fingers stick out, and then you see a head pull, and the head is kind of bulbous, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's clearly supposed to be Plagueis, the Wise, and I think they call him Plagueis the Wise because he's been sneaking around, skulking around, learning things, and he's the one that gave Palpatine the idea that you can create life with the Force. You know, and Palpatine wanted the twins, the Darth Vader twins, because he figured, okay, well, you know, this is it. This is the Force life. I can control it. You know, which is kind of his way to reach into across the veil, if I'm accurate about that, because if the Force reached to our side of the veil and created something, then it's basically the presence of the Force here. You control them. You can actually talk directly to the Force, or maybe you can control it if you can control what the Force put over here. He really wanted those twins, but he learns this from Plagueis, the Wise, and Plagueis is the Wise because he learned it. He's learning things. He's figuring stuff out. But he's clearly on this island, and they didn't do anything with it but give like a 4-second flash of him, you know, looking out the cave, checking out the new Padawan and the stranger, or, you know, the Acolyte and the stranger. So, is he the master of the stranger? Does the stranger know he's on the island, checking him out? I mean, he puts that helmet on. He's in tune with the Force. He knows what's happening. He didn't feel that guy hanging out, that powerful dude hanging out on the island in caves, probably eating those miniature walking elephants. He didn't see that. The Force is not very strong with you. There's questions. There's questions. What do they do now? Is the stranger going to like try to kill Jedi? Does he want to just train people and live a life? Something else they show in this episode, or well, yeah, I guess it was in this episode. The main reason, or maybe it was last episode, the main reason that Saul created all of this mayhem was a little bit because his master joked about him not having a Padawan, you know, an apprentice to teach. And he was determined to get one. He was like, I'm going to get one of them little girls, and it'd be my Padawan. I'll be just like you. I'm going to teach her. He was eventually going to become, you know, a Sith Lord. He was on his way. He had anger. He had regret, vengeance, jealousy. I want a Padawan too. I want a Padawan. I'm going to get one of them little Padawans. He's just going to get a kid. That's just crazy to me. He was determined too. He jumped on his little motor scooter, zooming through the woods. You know, I'm going to go get one of them kids. Chasing the other Jedi, the Padawan. Padawans don't listen to their masters. What is up with that? You know? But he chased the Padawan and, you know, got him and was supposed to bring him back. But he was like, let's scale the wall together instead. I was supposed to be bringing you back. But I changed my mind, which actually didn't need to be changed because I was planning on going in here anyway. I just needed you to run so that I could. You know what? Did he influence that little kid to run the other Jedi so he could chase him and get to the wall and pretend that he was coming? Oh, I got to go get him. I'll go get him. You guys stay here. Nobody follow us because I don't want you to see what happened. I'll go get him. And then he chases him and he's like, yeah, let's scale the wall together. He brought backup, but sent the backup before he needed the backup. He sent him first. I think he influenced that kid because he clearly had a weak mind. I don't even know why that dude killed himself. He kills himself later because another dude killed people and lied about it. I don't understand his regret. And again, these are all aliens. Maybe I just don't understand how his alien mind works. But anyway, the Acolyte ended like Star Wars. Disney is doing this a lot. Hawkeye, Echo. They're ending all of their franchise straight-to-TV series open-ended. I guess with the possibility of making a second season on everything and not closing enough stuff. You know, there's so many questions at the end of it. I guess they're trying to be intriguing, but they're being infuriating. People are like, come on, man, just tell me what happens next. But they're trying to be intriguing, I guess. And it pulls you in sometimes, and sometimes, you know, it doesn't. But with The Acolyte, there's so many things. I mean, they could have put at the end, they could have said, you know, season 2 coming in the fall or something, just to let you know, man, we understand that we didn't actually tell you everything. They make it seem like, yeah, it was a great show, hurrah. And everybody's like, so what happened? It would be like watching a movie about two great boxers, and through the entire franchise, they've been building to this. They've both been knocking out their opponents, and then they finally get in the ring, and you find out that that A's old trainer didn't think he could do it, so he spiked the other guy's drink, and you find out that the other guy, his girlfriend was nervous that he was going to die, so she had somebody put brass knuckles and saw him into his gloves. And then they get into the ring, ding, ding, and as soon as the match starts, it cuts off. And then they roll credits. You would be like, they were building to something. What happened next? That's kind of what happened here. They were building to something. Wookiee Jedi with a lightsaber. Boy, they slipped on that one. They were building to something. And then they just had people hugging on the beach, both of them holding a lightsaber, looking into the water, while Plagueis is staring at him, you know, all creepy in the caves, checking people out. And both of them are supposed to be force sensitive. Everybody on the island's force sensitive. Nobody sees Plagueis. Did he know about him? Is that why he didn't look behind him and say, hey, there's a creepy dude looking at us? Did he know about him? Is Plagueis so powerful that, you know, even as powerful as the stranger was, Plagueis was so powerful that he was like, you can't see me? What? I don't know. A lot of questions. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying they left a lot of open-ended stuff. But that's what I think. I feel like a commercial with my shirt like that. But that's what I think. More importantly, what do you think? Now that you had a chance to look at the video, let's talk about it some more in the comments. The Acolyte. I would give this as an entire series. You know, there was so many really cool things that they introduced, so many good things they could have done. They slipped and dropped the ball a lot, in my opinion. I didn't write it. I didn't pay for it. I'm just watching it. And since they wanted me to watch it, I watched it. This is what I think. I would give this show as a total 6 bags of popcorn. It should be 6.5. It was almost a 7. Wookiee with a lightsaber. But 6 bags of popcorn. Because that's what I think about that. And more importantly, what do you think about that? If you like the video, if you like the channel, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn passport. Get your popcorn passport.